And Adam Schefter's talking about how Aaron Rodgers might be walking away from the game of football and how this roller coaster ride of 3 weeks might end. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not anytime soon, but when it does end, it might end with Aaron Rodgers sailing into the sunset with a 5-11 record in New York saying, this is how I'm going to go out. Now, my thoughts on the matter before we dive into the quote is simple. Aaron Rodgers does not strike me as a 5-11, that's how I'm going to leave guy. But Aaron Rodgers is an enigma, okay? This guy is the unknown. I know nothing. And I believe everything, but also believe nothing at the same time when it comes to Aaron Rodgers. That is who this guy is. And that is what I'm learning more and more by the day when it comes to Aaron Rodgers. Like I'm trying to be the guy that preaches optimism in this situation. I've been trying to be that guy. I think that somebody has to be that guy. This is the wildest situation we have all been presented with in our entire Pittsburgh Steelers fan base life. We've never witnessed something like this. Nobody, not even those sitting here saying I've watched 40 quarterbacks come through Pittsburgh. They've never sat here and been through a 3-week ride of Aaron Rodgers and everything that it could possibly present in 2025. And therefore, I'm trying to bring a positive spin on everything. Okay. But at the same time, I know nothing. I believe nothing, but I believe everything at the same time. And this time I believe this when Adam Schefter says on ESPN Milwaukee, quote, I think that first of all, they both need each other right now, frankly, speaking of the Pittsburgh Steelers and Aaron Rodgers. And if that's if Aaron wants to play, which I'm not convinced yet that he does until I hear him say, I want to play, then I can tell you people are asking that question about whether or not he wants to play. It comes up. I'm hearing he might not want to play, which, by the way, again, I don't want to speak for him because I don't want to get called out. We're speculating, but it shouldn't be that hard. Either you want to play for the Steelers or you don't. What are we waiting for? Adam Schefter hears from those around the league, probably close to Aaron Rodgers, that, maybe he doesn't want to play football. And I'm pretty sure Adam Schefter was the guy the lose your number guy. I'm correct here, right? It was
1,000%.
It was Schefter. So if anybody's close, Schefter's been closer than any. He got there. He got the number of Aaron Rodgers. He pulled the trigger and made the ballsiest text of all time. We're talking, 2 a.m. drunk text that you regret the next morning. Schefter went way past that one, shot his shot with Aaron Rodgers and got denied hard. But you got to think that he knows enough people close to Aaron to make this believable, to say that conversation is probably being had. What are the odds that Aaron Rodgers actually retires? I have no idea. But I do know that every time I talk to anybody in the Pittsburgh Steelers building or a source associated both with the Steelers and or Aaron Rodgers, and I've talked to both sides, nobody has an answer of what's going on. Nobody has an answer of how this is going to end. Not one person ever, not once, has said we're confident that the Steelers are going to sign Aaron Rodgers. They're confident that they are the best landing spot for Aaron Rodgers. Those on Aaron's side are confident that Aaron believes the Steelers are the best landing spot for Aaron Rodgers. But nobody on either side has ever said this is definitely going to happen, that there is an expectation that he signs in Pittsburgh. In fact, every single phone call ends with anything could happen. Anything could happen. That's why the Russ thing took so long. Because every conversation also ended with, it's also a possibility that, Russ you got to leave the door open for Russ because you just never know. You just have no idea what's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers. I don't think this is far-fetched at all. I don't think it's out in left field. I think this is just as real of a possibility as the Pittsburgh Steelers getting Aaron Rodgers in 2025. I want your reaction on it, but I also want to know, what point in this does Aaron have to make this call before he really screws the Steelers and makes this much more difficult for them to walk away in an instance where he's already dragged him out far enough. They don't got any other options. At what point is this, okay, he just retired. It's July 3rd, and Mason Rudolph and Skylar Thompson are the only two quarterbacks on the entire roster because the Steelers screwed up. At what point is it too far gone that Aaron really hurts these guys? And do you believe that it's a possibility that he does walk away?
I'll answer the first question initially here, which is I don't think Adam Schefter has any idea. You mentioned that if anybody, Schefter has it. I think if anybody but Adam Schefter has it because of what you mentioned, because of the lose my number crap. I think Aaron Rodgers does not have a large circle around him. And I think that circle knows that if you're going to talk to anybody, you're not going to talk to Adam Schefter. I don't think Aaron Rodgers wants Adam Schefter to be the first on anything involving his career. So I think that's Schefter speculating. And yeah, while we all know that has been an option on the table, at this stage of the game, to me, it feels like retirement is on the back burner. It feels like it's if all else fails, I can always retire. But Aaron Rodgers is one of the best competitors, one of the ultimate competitors that we have seen in the 21st century in this sport. He doesn't want to go out with a 5-12 record, looked at as another quarterback that failed in New York. He wants to go out on better terms than that. The money's not the issue. It's the legacy. And that's why he's holding out hope for the Vikings. And that's why the Steelers were above the Giants in every discussion that we had. So I don't think retirement is actually on the table. I think that was just speculation. And the fact that it's Adam Schefter, we have to take it a little bit more seriously than if anybody else ended up saying it. But I think that was mainly speculation. I don't think retirement is as on the forefront of this discussion as Schefter made it seem. Now, the second part of your question was, at what point does it screw the Steelers if Rodgers pulls the chute and says, that is it, I'm heading to South America, I'm going to be on ayahuasca 90% of the remainder of my life? I don't think it's on Rodgers. Rodgers cannot screw the Steelers. The Steelers are the only people that can screw the Steelers at this point. I said a couple times this week that they should tell him, hey, if the timeline is by Sunday, let us know by Sunday. But the Steelers screw themselves if they go into the week of the draft and haven't made a decision. If he still doesn't make a decision by the week of the draft, the Steelers need to make it for him and say, the door is closed, because that's when they need to decide what quarterback and what round they're going to grab a quarterback in the NFL draft. So I think the only person that can screw the Steelers right now is themselves. It's not up to Aaron to screw them. It's up to Aaron and whether or not he wants to play there. But if they're going to get screwed, it's going to be because they wait longer than the draft and they end up taking somebody in the 4th or 5th round who's not going to be ready this year. And they end up going with Mason Rudolph, which again is not the worst case scenario possible, but it's not as good as what the Steelers want to have happen, which is either an early draft pick that can mature or Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And that's an interesting, and I like it, answer about screwing the Steelers. On the other side of it, so you think this is 3 weeks? It definitely didn't start this way, but you think we're in week 3 where it's coming down to Aaron Rodgers sitting around thinking Pittsburgh Steelers or waited out for the Minnesota Vikings? That's what's going on here in Aaron Rodgers' head?
1,000%. Because in all reality, anybody outside of the city of Pittsburgh that looks at the Steelers, it's not looking at them like a team that can go to a Super Bowl. It's not looking at them like a team that can confidently say they're going to win a playoff game. You look at Minnesota, they won 14 games with Sam Darnold. If you're Aaron Rodgers, you think, wow, that is a team that is primed for a long playoff run. I just have to be myself, and I can probably be a playoff team and probably have a chance to win a couple playoff games and maybe, just maybe, squeak into the Super Bowl and add to my legacy. So would he wait for that? 1,000% he would wait for that, especially because there's so much uncertainty around JJ McCarthy, who missed the entirety of last year with that injury. So I think that this is literally him saying, if I can hold out until Minnesota decides to give me an option, or if the Steelers just say, hey, we'll keep the door open for you, why would I make that decision and close myself on the opportunity to go win another Super Bowl?
Okay. Interesting. Very interesting. If that's the case with Aaron Rodgers, where he is sitting around saying, I'm waiting for Minnesota, I don't know I think I'd have to sit here and contemplate that for a little bit, because my thoughts on the retirement thing is, if you're 1 foot out, 1 foot in the door right now, the Steelers shouldn't want Aaron Rodgers. That they, you don't want a guy who's half retired. You never want a guy who's half retired, because that guy's not going to show up to OTAs. That guy's not going to show up to training camp looking to be in Latrobe for a month. Nobody's looking to be in Latrobe for a month. You know what I mean? You're not sitting in a dorm room at 41 years old going, this is awesome, man. The camp mentality. No, nobody wants that. We're past that. If you're 25 years old and a rookie in the NFL, that's awesome. You know what I mean? That's cool. 41, you're like, all right, dude, can we just get to the part where I throw footballs here? Like, this is a little ridiculous. I think the 1 foot in, 1 foot out is a dangerous game to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. 1 foot in, 1 foot in Minnesota. Interesting. Because at least you're here. You're ready to play. You're full in on playing in 2025, which is important. But the Steelers, man, I think it makes them look so desperate. Because this is not like Aaron's got to contemplate his career and come to a conclusion that the Steelers are the team over retirement. He still wants to play football. This is, the Steelers are they're the ones that are sitting around going, whenever you're ready, sweetie, whenever you take your time, you decide you want to come back. They're the desperate ones here, just begging Aaron Rodgers without actually begging it. I think it takes away from the whole, we have not changed our offer thing, which, I think maybe at some point in this conversation has to change, because the Steelers are very adamant that that is a respectful way to go about this for their fans, is to say, Aaron, we've only offered you one term deal, 1 year deal, and we have not changed that deal because our fans wouldn't want us to change that deal. That's what I've read quotes on here, direct quotes from sources saying that the Steelers view this as we are being respectful to our fans. Okay, well, it's respectful until you have to sweeten the pot a little bit to say, all right, dude, come on. Can you please stop thinking about it, Minnesota, and come to Pittsburgh, and here's an extra $15 million, which looks terrible, but that's what again, you said it yourself. The Steelers have put themselves in this situation. They have gotten here. The 1 foot in, 1 foot in Minnesota is interesting. It makes just as much sense as retirement. I don't know where retirement stands. That's the thing, is I don't know where Aaron sits currently. I do know this. I do know that everybody I've talked to, and again, I've spoken to people on the Steelers side very close to the situation, and I've spoken to people on Aaron Rodgers' side very close to the situation. And I'm actually very grateful to have been able to expand who I've been speaking to kind of get as much insight on this situation as I can. And while it's still dark in a lot of areas, I've been told that when all this is done, when all this is said and done one way or another, I will be able to be told enough information that I could share it with you guys about everything that transpired in this entire event, which I think is huge. I think it's huge for me. I want to know, but I think it's bigger for you guys for me to be able to say, this is behind the door. This is behind the curtain of how Aaron Rodgers got here. What that decision is makes this entire situation and that entire story so different one way or another. And it's hard to wrap your brain around, to sit here and go, maybe I'll get the story of how Aaron Rodgers retired. Maybe I'll get the story of how Aaron Rodgers ended up in Pittsburgh, which I think is the most boring of the three. Maybe I get the story of how Aaron Rodgers waited it out for the Minnesota Vikings. But I am so curious to know what is really, really going on in that guy's head. And I hope one day we get to learn it. But wild times for Aaron Rodgers. I'll ask you again. It's Thursday, okay? What's your prediction? We'll ask this. We got to keep asking this until this ends. What's your prediction? Where does this go? We do this on games, on Najee, on Justin Fields, on everything. Where are we at with Justin? Or where are we at with Aaron? Where does he go? What's your prediction with Aaron Rodgers?
I mean, it's really hard to narrow down what an actual prediction would be for an end date on this, because the question is...
No, not end date. What happens?
Oh, what happens? I think he still ends up in Pittsburgh.
Okay. Okay.
I don't think he's going to retire. And when it comes down to those two things, I think he's going to end up in Pittsburgh because I don't think Minnesota is going to delay the development of their young quarterback another year for Aaron Rodgers. It doesn't make sense to me. So if I'm putting a prediction down on where, I think Pittsburgh ends up being the destination.
I agree. I agree. But as I say that, the clip that goes through my head is Diana Rossini on the Dan Patrick Show saying, my guess is the Minnesota Vikings. And I'm going, why? Why? What do you know? You know what I mean? Like who told you what that made you so confident in Minnesota, and from what side? Because if it was Minnesota's side, I don't care. But if it was Aaron's side, I care. And I care a lot that that's the side that Aaron Rodgers' side is pushing, is the Minnesota Vikings. I think that pays dividends in this situation.